However, it became clear how unaffordable and how unsustainable that is in this city. And the existing political and economic systems are broken. As the Greens candidate for Sydney, Chetan will push for real action on climate change and the housing crisis, and fight for social justice and equality. He believes that we deserve far better than the status quo if we want to build a better future for Sydney.
Thank you, Vanessa, as well, for hosting this. Thank you to Friends of Erskineville, Alexandria Residents Action Group and Red Watch for giving us this opportunity as candidates to be able to speak to all of you and to hear directly your questions and be able to respond to those. I also want to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Sovereignty was never ceded. This always was and always will be Aboriginal land. Now, I don't know about you, but I've been seeing what's been going on in Lismore. I remember the bushfires not too long ago. Right now I've got family in India that are facing weeks of 40-degree plus days, and it's really got me worried. And this is part of what got me involved in politics to begin with, and what drew me to the Greens as well. We know that we need action on climate change. We know the severity of what we're already experiencing, and we know that it's only going to get worse from here. And what we've seen from this current government is a complete lack of action in that area, completely. And so why I'm here today is to present the Greens plan for real action on climate change. The message is simple: no more coal and gas. It seems quite straightforward. This is what the science says. This is what we know needs to be done. But quite frankly, we're not getting that from either of the major parties. So our plan is to transition from where we are now to 100% renewable energy by 2030, with a 75% reduction in emissions by that time, and to get to net zero by 2035. Because we know that that's what's required. We know that's what the science says, and that's what the problem demands. Again, as part of our plan, one of the things that often comes up is, well, what's going to happen to coal miners? What's going to happen to the existing coal industry? Well, part of our plan is to have a transition job-for-jobs guarantee for all of those people from coal communities, coal miners, who, whether it happens through our transition or whether it happens by the private market, we know that coal is going out the door. We know that gas is going out the door. And it's better that we are there to be able to provide the support they need, rather than leave it to the private market, the people in corporate boardrooms making that decision for them. So we're offering a job-for-jobs guarantee, and we know that that's the right thing to do. The coal workers aren't our enemies. It is these coal companies who are profiting massively from the extraction and burning of fossil fuels in this country. And we'll pay for this by taxing them, which seems quite straightforward. It feels like something we should have been doing for a long time. As Andrew touched on before, we're already giving away $12 billion per year in subsidies to fossil fuel companies. Simply by removing those subsidies, we can try to channel some of that money into renewable energy projects by taxing the billionaires, by closing the loopholes that these mega corporations have been exploiting for years to move their profits offshore. We can fund a just transition where no one is left behind. And we know that we can't have any more coal and gas projects. So one of the things that we will do if and when we are able to be in balance of power, hopefully we can say goodbye to the Liberals and be in balance of power, holding Labor to account, is to put a stop to their plans for 114 new coal and gas projects, which they've already agreed to. From the science is clear on this, the UN is clear on this, even the International Energy Agency says if we even want to hit net zero by 2050, we need to have zero new coal and gas projects. And right now they're ready to approve 114, so we need to put a stop to that. And I think what we see here is very much a failure of imagination from both Liberal and Labor, unfortunately. we see again when it comes to housing. So the reality of living in Sydney right now is that housing prices are about $1.6 million for a median house in Sydney, which is completely outrageous. It's unreachable for anyone on a regular wage. It's completely impossible if you're a nurse or if you're a teacher or anything like that. So our policy is big, it's bold, and it needs to be done. 1 million publicly owned houses built through a federal housing trust. Because what we can't be doing is relying on the market and pumping more and more money into the market to fix the problem. Fundamentally, the system is broken, the market is not working, and we need to look for solutions beyond that. And that's what we're looking to do. 750,000 of those over the next 20 years will be designated public housing to clear out the waiting lists, because we already know, as Andrew touched on as well, it's about 200,000 households are on our public housing waiting list. We want to be able to clear that out within 5 years. We want to end homelessness, and we want to make it so that there is a real safety net for people. Most people today are getting squeezed by the private market. They don't have an option. They don't have anywhere to go, and public housing is the way that we can make sure that people aren't going to be forced into homelessness or forced into situations where they have to leave their communities, they have to leave their families. Fundamentally, housing is a human right, and it shouldn't be controversial to say that. Now, in terms of the federal ICAC, I think this is, again, part of the story as to why we haven't been seeing real action on either of these twin crises that are making our lives more difficult and making it harder for us to get by, both the climate crisis and the housing crisis. We do support, and have supported for about 13 years now, and we've been pushing for it. The Greens support a federal ICAC based on the same model as the New South Wales ICAC that, as we've seen, has been reasonably effective. And we want it to be a retrospective ICAC. We want it to have teeth. We want them to be able to receive tip-offs from the public, and we want them to be able to have a broad remit for searching for any allegations of corruption or anything that looks like corruption, because at the end of the day, without trust in our political system, in our politicians, we're never going to be able to achieve what we know needs to be done in terms of facing the crises that we are seeing today. And I'm glad to say that Labor have recently come around to that position. As I said, we've been fighting for it for 13 years, and they did vote with us in 2019 for Larissa Waters' bill, and that passed the Senate. So one of the first things that we want to do at the beginning of the next Parliament